Where you really like someone and you're kind of jealous because they're talking to other women, rather than I'm in a relationship with someone and I'm jealous of them having friends of the same gender, or because that kind of, there's so much in that I just wouldn't be able to answer without knowing your personal situation and without knowing different things like what has been the history of this, and has there been infidelity, what's the conversation around you both getting your needs met, what do you both understand about this, like there's just so much. Whereas if we're focusing on it's someone we like and this is happening, then it's a little bit, I just find it's a little bit easier to dig into. So let's focus on the situation where you really like someone and you see them talking to other girls, and it brings up this feeling of just intense jealousy. By the way, before we go any further, flip the gender labels as they apply to you, whoever it is you date, whatever gender you are, just flip it because it works for everyone. So let's say, in the example I'm giving, you like someone and you've seen him talking to other women and it brings up this intense feeling of jealousy. I remember this very well. And what I'm saying is as much to you guys as it is to my former self. And, you know, I think what this is about really is it's about a lot of fear. And it's about a fear of that person not choosing you and that person choosing the other women instead of you. And that can make us feel afraid that we're going to be left, we're going to be abandoned. And another part of this too is possession. It's really about, we're possessing someone, we're trying to own them, we're trying to claim them, we're trying to have them as our own, which isn't love. Like, that's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up that we feel like we need to have this person, and if someone else has them, that impacts us in such a negative way that we'd rather them not be with the person they want. And that's not love, that's obsession, that is all kinds of dysfunction. It really is. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. So if you are afraid of this person that you like, this guy that you like, speaking to other women and choosing another woman over you, what does that mean? Let's face it, let's say the worst possible outcome happens in your mind and he does go off and choose someone else. Then what? Right, and I want you to just think on that, maybe journal on it. If that happens, I would feel ... and just journal it out. And how does that make you feel? And it might make you feel disappointed, sad, hurt, betrayed, abandoned. Anything that comes up for you is perfectly fine. And then you can ask yourself the question, where does this come from? Or you can ask, what does this remind me of? You can also ask yourself, who does this person remind me of? And what you're going to do there is find out what event in your past this is really triggering and this is really reminding you of, because there's some kind of pattern here, some kind of cycle, some kind of pattern of behavior. And then knowing that, now what? You can journal on that question too. Knowing that, now what? What would you do if that happened, right? So he chooses some other girl, you feel hurt, and then what happens then? Right, we're not going to die. That's the overall thing. We're not going to die. We're not going to drown in our emotions. We're just going to have to process them, and that's all that is. It's just an opportunity to look at your pattern and say, okay, this has come up, I need to look at that. And it's just the opportunity to use your emotions, your feelings and your experiences as a prompt to really dive deeper and get to know yourself better. And if one of your answers is how you would feel is, oh my God, it's happened again, that is perfect. And I know you might be thinking it doesn't feel perfect, and I get that. But what you're starting to identify there is that is a pattern. And this is a pattern for you. If it's the feeling of, oh my God, it's happening again, you're in a cycle, you're in a repeating reality. And that is really great information, because you can then look at that and you can heal it and you can gain power over it. So there's that. There's finding out where it came from and finding out the origin of this and why it is that you have an expectation that you're not going to be chosen, that you're not going to be accepted, that you're not going to be loved. What else could it bring up? That you're going to be left, you're going to be abandoned, you're going to be on your own, like all these kind of things. Also, it's worth journaling on, if he did choose me, and this wording, I have some issues with it, but I know this might be the type of wording you might use, so we'll stay with it for a second for the purposes of journaling on it. If he chooses me, I would feel ... and then journal out how you would feel. And I don't want to give you any spoilers, so perhaps pause this if you haven't journaled on it already. But I'd be curious to see how you would feel if he chose you. I'd feel loved, I would feel accepted, I would feel beautiful, I would feel good enough. So what you're really seeking is not this man to have a relationship with you. What you want to feel really is like loved and confident and good enough and beautiful and worthy. And you are all those things anyway. And you don't need someone else to make you feel that. And also, nobody can make you feel that way permanently. It's just not possible. Because let's say if this person did choose you, and I'm going to come back to that wording in a second. Let's say he did choose you. What happens when he then goes to a work event, or he gets home late from work, or he goes on holiday with his friends, or he starts talking to a colleague at work? All those fears, all those triggers, all that dysfunction comes back up again because you haven't really dealt with it, right? Just because the symptom disappears doesn't mean the wound is healed. Just because the symptom disappears doesn't mean the wound is healed. So what's happening is it's not being triggered, but it's still there. And you know, it's an interesting thing, when we heal this stuff, we're not looking outside of ourselves for other people to confirm that we're worthy, that we're good enough, that we're beautiful, that we're accepted, because we're generating those feelings within ourselves. And that's the ability to self-generate. That's the ability to feel good on your own. That's the ability to help yourself move through sadness. It's the ability to calm yourself down when you feel angry and move through that and learn from that. Not bypass it, not be like, oh, I'm angry, let me make myself feel happy. It's not about that. It's about understanding where that emotion's coming from and really working through it. But when you have the ability to do that, you're not seeking outside of yourself for people to validate you all the time. And this doesn't just happen in relationships. This is also, it can happen with friends, it can happen with co-workers, clients, family members, random people that you encounter during your day. It happens everywhere because it's not actually a relationship pattern, it's your pattern, and it happens to be triggered in the most extreme way in relationships. So yeah, it's worth looking at how it is you'd feel if this person chose you, because that's really what you want to feel. And unless you really find the ability and really practice the ability and own it and embody it, what's going to happen is those same wounds and triggers of him, oh my God, he's not going to choose me, that's going to come up again when he's working late or going on holiday, or something triggers it again. So that's really what it is. So let's come back now to this whole thing of ownership, because that's really what that is. If you want this person to choose you, and I'm going to tackle this wording, if you want someone to choose you and not choose other people, what you really want is to own that person, and that's not love. Love to me sounds like and feels like, I want you to be happy, and if that means you have to go and do this thing, that's okay. You know, that doesn't mean you're like, oh, I'm just gonna wait here while you go date other people. That's not what it is at all. It's more like you understand, it's like a Venn diagram. It's like your needs versus their needs, and you see where the overlap is. And if there's an overlap in where you can both get your needs met, then you can have some kind of relationship, or, you know, if it's not in the context of dating, it could be like a collaboration or whatever it looks like. But when there's too little of an overlap and your needs are very, very different, it's about being able to surrender to that and really just say, hey, look, you know, I care about you enough to want you to be happy and want you to have your needs met. And if that's not with me, that's okay. It could be with someone else. And maybe you don't say those words in that particular way to them, but you're certainly saying that to yourself. And you're not just saying it like, I would just want them to be happy. You're really embodying it. It's really true for you. You really know that it's probably best for them to be elsewhere, and that's okay. Because love doesn't own and love doesn't possess, and love isn't ownership, and ownership isn't love. That's obsession, and obsession is, God, it's so unhealthy. I had a day off yesterday, and I watched some really interesting documentaries, and I started, I don't know if you guys ever do this, I fell down the rabbit hole and started watching documentaries about like crime and true crime and stuff like that. And any time where there was like a really heinous crime committed, more often than not, there was like this lust and this obsession between two people. And it was like this like fatal attraction. Like fatal attraction is not healthy. It's really dangerous. And I'm not saying it would end in like it being a true crime situation. Hopefully not. But it certainly would be a crime against you and your heart and your feelings, because it's like, it's so toxic. It's so consuming. And I think we have these thoughts in, you know, the media and in songs and in popular culture of like, oh my God, I can't live without you. How am I going to live without you? Like, that's love. It's not. It's dangerous. That's obsession. Love doesn't want to own anyone or possess anyone. Love's kind of chill. Love's kind of relaxed. It's kind of like sitting back drinking a cup of tea. Love feels more like a warm cup of tea than it does a shot of vodka or a wild night out on whiskey. It's a lot more relaxed. And sometimes we're like, oh, that's not love, that's boring. But when we've been used to this real toxic love and toxic relationships where it's like up, down, and it's all these spikes emotionally. By the way, I talk about this in the podcast with Ashley Hann. It was released a little bit ago now. But if you haven't heard that, I go into it in so much detail. So please do watch that if toxic love is something that you've been involved in. But like, we get addicted to these spikes in emotion and we think that's love, and it's not. And we've usually learnt this somewhere, and it's sometimes in our family of origin. It often is, but we've learnt it when we're younger and we think that's love. And then when we experience something that is really emotionally healthy, we're like, oh, what's this? And we want to push away from it, and we want to say it's boring, when actually that's love is really calm. And it's not to say there's not passion and there's not, you know, that excitement too, but it's like, it's not dramatic. Love isn't dramatic.